Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially entered phase 1 of our reopening plan for our physical campuses. So what does that mean? It means that our Weekends on Wednesday service is up and running. And for those of you who are hanging out with us online, what you don't know is when you come into a Weekends on Wednesday service now at our Kenosha campus, you get handed a green sticker, which pretty much says you can make out with me if you want, or a red sticker that says, barely look at me. Barely, no, actually what it means is I don't want physical touch, I don't want handshakes and high fives, keep that to yourself right now, and we are very respectful of wherever people are at. So, I'm going to start by welcoming our online friends, those of you joining us in living rooms throughout southeast Wisconsin, northern Illinois, different communities across the nation, and in every country around the world, including North Korea. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but guys, it's good to have you. And then, of course, those of you in the room with me, I know you've been missing that. I know you've been missing that energy, this highly intelligent, it's a little bit to be desired, right? But this very courageous group of people said, we're going to be there for service 1. And I've been hearing a lot of coughing. I've watched someone who picked up a piece of gum on the ground and put it in their mouth. I'm convinced these guys have temperatures over 102, but man, they are here, and they're not only here for our first reopening service, they're here on my birthday, so I love you all. I love you all. Here's our public service announcement. Now that the Wednesday services are up and running, 6:30 Kenosha campus, we are going to soon be in our Sunday morning openings. That's happening the first week of August, and so for those of you hanging out with us online, you can get the information for that at greatlakeschurch.com/COVID-19. All right, greatlakeschurch.com/COVID-19. Today, we are continuing our series called Mixtape, all right, which more or less is a playlist. And so regardless of the generation that you're a part of, you're familiar with playlists. And what I want to do today, because we haven't been in a physical location for a while, those of you hanging out with us online, you can play at home and pretend that you are the all-star of your house, but I'm going to do a little pop quiz here. I'm going to give you the songs, the lyrics of a song that ought to be in your love song playlist, and then I want you to tell me which artist or which band sang it. Okay, now I know some of these are going to have like multiple bands that sang it, so you're just going to have to do a lucky guess, all right? Here we go. I'm going to start out. It's number 7. I'm only doing 7 of these. Don't want to close my eyes. I don't want to fall asleep because I'd miss you, babe. And I don't want to miss a thing. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Aerosmith. You got to keep track in your head right now or on your fingers to see how cultured you are. Number 6, because all of me loves all of you, loves your curves and all your edges and all your imperfections. John Legend, and he's such a liar. He doesn't love all your imperfections. You know that's not you. Here we go. Number 5, and when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while because, girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. Yeah, Bruno Mars, ladies and gentlemen. We're moving forward. All right, number 4. This is going to be challenging. It's a little bit funny, this feeling inside. I'm not one of those who can easily hide. I don't have much money, but boy, if I did, Elton John, yeah, I'd buy a big house where we could both live. It's like he's stealing lyrics from Dr. Seuss, but yes, it's Elton John. All right, number 3, here we go. These fancy things will never come in between. I literally just spit something out of my mouth. All right, that's disgusting. Number 3, that's some COVID-19 that's been sitting down there, it's just gone. All right, these fancy things will never come in between. You're part of my entity here for infinity. Oh, it's awfully slow right now. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Rihanna. That is Rihanna. All right, number 2, here we go. Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. Elvis, yeah. And then finally, number 1, if you miss this, you are a loser. Get out of this building. Here we go. If I should stay, I would only be in your way. So I'll go. But I know, yeah, I think of you every step of the way, and I will always love you, ladies and gentlemen. That is Whitney Houston. How many of you got more than 5? You got more than 5. I know those of you at home did a way better job. You were just Googling the answers. You don't care. So here's the deal. All summer long, we are looking at different psalms, which are more or less a playlist. or a mixtape of songs. It's a collection of poetry. It's a collection of songs. It's a collection of, it's been a while, I'm a little rusty on this, but a collection of prayers that are intended to refocus the mind and the heart of those singing it away from the stress and the difficulty and the challenges of life onto the greatness of God. Now, if you know anything about Jewish history, you know that Israel started as a small family, just Abraham and Sarah and Isaac, and over time it grew into a large nation. And the journey from a family into a nation was not all rainbows and unicorns and cotton candy. It was challenging. There was famine, there was war, there was slavery, there were difficulty, there was betrayal. And so what would happen is often the Jewish people would sit around a campfire at night and they would sing songs to remind themselves of the greatness of God and recall his faithfulness to them. And so their hymnal that they used was the book of Psalms. Now, Psalms has 150 different chapters, and every one of those chapters is intended to wash our minds from the toxic thoughts and from the negative influences that get into there throughout the week. And yet what's interesting is even though that's the purpose of the Psalms, not all the Psalms are Pollyanna. Not all the Psalms are laughing and joyful and exciting. Right? The Psalms have different genres. There's Psalms of thanksgiving. There's Psalms of wisdom. There's Psalms of praise. There's Psalms of ascent that Jewish people would sing as they ascended to Jerusalem a few times throughout the year. But 70% of the Psalms are Psalms of lament. They're Psalms that ask questions like, why the heck is my life the way it is? Why is it, God, that I have been faithful to you, but you've not been faithful in return? Do you see? Do you hear? Do you even notice my life? And every generation throughout history has learned how to read and how to study and how to sing and how to pray the Psalms because they do such a great job of reflecting what's in our heart as human beings. Now, today what we're going to do is we're going to look at Psalm chapter 1. I'm going to let you know right up front, we are not going to actually read most of it until the end. But I want to look at Psalm 1 because Psalm 1 is incredibly practical. It's about the two different paths and the two different options that you and I as human beings can take in this life. We can either choose the way of life or the way of death. We can choose the way of joy and the way of happiness or the way that leads to despair. We can choose the path that brings liberty and brings freedom or the path that brings oppression. We can choose the way that leads to success or the way that leads to failure. And so Psalm chapter 1 starts out like this. Blessed is the one. Now don't miss this. The very first word in the very first verse of the very first chapter of the book of Psalms is blessed. Blessed means happy. And I love this. Because this word bless, what it does is it speaks to our deepest motivation in life, which of course is our own happiness. None of us can deny this. Almost everything we do, all the decisions we make are about our own happiness, right? The career path that we choose in life, who we choose to hang out with, what college we choose to attend, who we choose to date, who we choose to marry, how many kids we choose to have, where we choose to live, where we choose to do vacations, how we choose to manage our money. All of that is about chasing this desire to feel good and to be successful. Now, I'm going to be really clear here because I don't want to be misunderstood. Happiness is a good thing. I promise you, it's way more fun to hang out with me when I'm happy than when I'm not happy. Right? I don't want to hang out with you when you're not happy. I don't want to hang out with you when you're depressed and irritable and complaining about everything all the time. Right? I don't want to do that. And so thankfully, none of the Psalms actually push up against our desire to be happy, but many of the Psalms challenge the source of our happiness. Now, I'm intentionally speaking on this topic this week because this is the week that we, it's been a while, ladies. This is the week that we celebrate the adoption of the Declaration of Independence, which pretty much says that we have the right to three things: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So for 244 years now, we as a nation, we've taken part in this social experiment of chasing and going after and pursuing happiness. So what happens every time we open a magazine, right? Every time we surf on the internet, every time that we watch TV, every time we listen to the radio, we are constantly being bombarded with a list of things that supposedly is going to bring us happiness. And if you pay really close attention, you'll notice that happiness is closely associated with freedoms and rights. It makes us happy that we have the freedom and right to pretty much buy whatever we want to buy if we can afford it. This is why Amazon thrives. It makes us happy that we have the freedom to go to different places in our community or the communities around us and find entertainment. It makes us happy that we can read or watch pretty much whatever we choose. And we take our freedoms for granted. But ladies and gentlemen, not every country has the freedoms we have. Heck, just this week, India banned the app Tik-Tok. Oh, I wish they'd do that in America. Right? But as Americans, we have something so many countries do not, and it is a document called the Bill of Rights. You know what that bill tells me? That I have the right to free speech, which means I can say anything I want about you and to you. I can swear at you, I can talk about your mama, I can talk about your kids, and there's not hardly anything you can do about it. That bill tells me I have the right to criticize the government without the risk of being punished. Now, I've seen some of your social media posts. And I got to tell you, if you lived in North Korea and you talked about the government leaders in North Korea the way you talk about government leaders in America, you'd have been executed a long time ago. We have the right. This bill tells us the freedom to gather together in groups of friends for whatever reason we want. Nobody can stop us. When it comes to our beliefs, nobody can force us to embrace a particular or religion or interfere with our worship. And the list goes on and on and on. We have so many rights. And as a nation, what we're doing is we're constantly debating what rights should be added to our list of rights and which rights should be taken away, right? Should someone have the right to free health care? Should someone have the right to marry whoever they choose, regardless of their sexuality? Should someone have the right to abort a baby? Should someone have the right, in this season, this is our big one, right? Should someone have the right to not wear a mask and not socially distance from each other? And as much as we debate our rights, we love our rights. But if the Bill of Rights was written today, you know this is not an exaggeration. Here's what it would be. I have the right to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want, as long as it doesn't interfere with anybody else's rights. If we're honest, come on, man, this is how so many of us think. But here's the problem, and every single parent knows this. If you give someone rights, but you do not couple those rights with responsibility, things are going to go horribly wrong. Because freedom without responsibility leads to recklessness. So if you give your kid car keys, but you don't give them any instructions, you don't give them guidelines or rules, guess what? You're setting them up to be reckless. This is why we have traffic laws. There are thousands of people who have been reckless with their free speech on social media and have lost their jobs because of it. And the reason why is because when you're reckless, things don't end well. Right? When you're reckless, the end of the day, you're not happier. When you're reckless in your marriage, when you're reckless with your health, when you're reckless with your words, when you're reckless with what you post on social media, when you're reckless in your career, the end result is not happiness. It doesn't make you happy. If you want to be happy, then your individual rights must be coupled with individual responsibility. It's awfully quiet in here. Yeah, individual rights must be coupled with individual responsibility. Now, the reason we have a Bill of Rights, but we don't have a Bill of Responsibilities, is because our founding fathers pretty much assumed responsibility. I mean, it's just kind of seen all throughout their writings. But obviously, come on, let's just be honest, we haven't done well with responsibility because here we are, more than 200, well, we'll be celebrating in just, we're celebrating this week, 244 years later, and we've had to create so many federal laws and so many regulations that this is true. Nobody actually knows how many laws and regulations there are in our country. So when it comes to the freedom to own guns, right, it is my right to own guns, there are thousands of regulations for governing the use of those guns. And that seems excessive. Like, why do we need all these regulations? Because as humans, what we tend to do is we tend to push limits. How far can I go without being fined, without being arrested, without being sent to prison? See, laws don't inspire greatness. Laws don't create and inspire virtue or excellence. Traffic laws, they're important. We need them. But they don't make us courteous drivers. Right? Civil laws don't make us civil. Tax laws, they're great, they're important, they're necessary, but come on, they don't make us responsible financially. They don't make us more generous. Homeowner association rules, right? They don't make us better homeowners. They don't make us better neighbors. Free speech doesn't make us kind and thoughtful. And so despite all the laws and all the regulations we have in our country, we can still say mean things to people. We can still sleep with whoever we want. We can still take advantage of one another. We can still protest funerals. We can heckle the president's speech. And there is nothing the government can do about it. Dave, please move on. Okay, I will. So here's the deal. There's an annual study. It comes out every year since 2012. It's called the World Happiness Report. Last year, it listed America at number 19 in comparison to other nations when it comes to happiness. Now, one of the three authors of this report, who was really studying up on the United States, he made this observation of us being number 19 on the list. Here's what they said. This year's report provides sobering evidence of how addictions are causing considerable unhappiness and depression in the United States. So we have the freedom to buy whatever we want to buy, eat whatever we want to eat, drink whatever we want to drink, watch or listen to whatever we want. But freedom without responsibility leads to recklessness. So let's put a smile on our face. Let's talk about happiness and responsibility. The author of Psalm chapter 1 writes this: blessed or happy is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. Now, there are lots of voices in this world. There's positive voices, there's negative voices. There's humble voices, there's arrogant voices, courageous voices, fearful voices. There's life-giving voices, there's destructive voices. There's voices that unite, there's voices that divide. And the author of Psalm 1 says this: happy people limit the voices, they limit the influences that speak into their minds and hearts. See, happy people know that they have the freedom to hang with whoever they want to hang with. It's their right. They have the freedom to listen to whatever they want to listen to, watch whatever they want to watch, but they choose carefully. Because somewhere deep down, they know that what Solomon wrote 3,000 years ago is true, that he who walks with the wise will become wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. Solomon says, if you walk with the wise, you will automatically, no effort at all, you don't have to take notes, you don't have to study, over time, you will become wise. Now, wise people are simply people who live today with tomorrow in mind. Wise people are responsible because they understand that my actions have consequences for the good or bad. And so Solomon says, if you surround yourself with people who think that way and live that way, you will start to live that way and think that way. But he also says the companion of fools suffers harm. So if you surround yourself with foolish people who love to talk about their freedoms and their rights, but never about their responsibilities, people who act like their decisions today have really no impact on their life tomorrow, he says the greater the odds are that at some point you're going to suffer harm. When their life explodes, you're going to experience some of the shrapnel of their decisions. And so happy people limit the voices in their life. And that doesn't simply mean, well, I limit who I do drinks with and I limit whose houses I go to and hang out with. I know this is going to sound legalistic and this is going to sound really rigid and really like it's a bunch of rules, but it also means that I limit what I read. I limit what I listen to. I limit the songs in my playlist. I limit the movies that I watch. I'm selective about it. I'm selective about who I follow on social media. I'm selective about the philosophies and the worldviews that I allow into my life. The way the author writes this is so dramatic, isn't it? Blessed, happy is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked or stand in the way that sinners take. or sit in the company of mockers. Whoa, it's dramatic. And I'm kind of relieved that it's dramatic because I know I don't hang with those kind of people. Because those are really evil people. Those are the people, when you look closely, they've got devil horns on them, and you're like, whoa, stay away from them. But that's because the language is so poetic. This is not being written about someone you're naturally going to stay away from because you know they're the next Adolf Hitler. All right? This isn't going to be about someone that you're like, they are the spawn of Satan, I'm not touching them. No, these verses are written about people who are actually fun to be around. They're charismatic. They've got passion. They've got opinions. Man, you laugh when you're around them. You think their life is all about fun. But when you step back and you watch it and you see the direction they're headed, it's very clear to you. They are headed in a direction that I do not want to go. The author says, stay away from people who are wicked. Stay away from sinners. Stay away from mockers. When he talks about the wicked, he's talking about people who are so self-centered, they don't ever think about how their decisions impact other people. They couldn't care less because they think about themselves. When he talks about sinners, he's talking about people who know the right path to take. They've been instructed, they've been informed, they know enough about life that this is what I should do, but they say, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do what I want to do. And mockers are a whole different category. Mockers are individuals who, when they look at you, and they see that you've got convictions, and they see that you're headed in a certain path, they will ridicule you. They will ridicule your beliefs. They will ridicule your convictions. And so the author of Psalm 1 says, hey, listen, any voice that cares first and foremost about themselves is not a voice that you want speaking into your life. Any voice that encourages you to do something that opposes the character of God, like belittle another person, like engage in gossip about another person, take advantage of another person. That is not a voice that you want speaking into your life. Any voice that at any level mocks your devotion to God, mocks your convictions, is not a voice that you want speaking into your life. And ladies and gentlemen, the author of Psalm 1 says, happy people choose to be responsible for the voices that they listen to. They know that they have the freedom to watch whatever they want to watch, read whatever they want to read, follow whoever they want on social media. They have the freedom to do all those things, but they choose carefully. So, blessed, happy is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. But whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. Dun, 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 dun. We don't like the word law. Wish the word law wasn't in there. Because we want to hear about our freedoms. We want to hear about our rights. But this phrase, the law of the Lord, is not a reference to a bunch of do's and don'ts. It is a reference to what all of the ancient scriptures collectively reveal to us about God. And so happy people focus their minds and their hearts on God. Happy people meditate and reflect on the greatness of God and the love of God and the compassion of God and the faithfulness of God and the mercy of God. Because here's what happens as we focus on who God is. Our faith begins to grow. Our confidence in who God is begins to grow. Our trust in God begins to grow. And then we discover that God isn't just simply a little bit smarter than us and a little bit kinder than us and a little bit, but God is a complete category all by himself. His ways are above our ways. His thoughts are above our thoughts. Everything about God is countercultural, which means as we focus on him and then we try to follow Jesus and we try to imitate Jesus, there's going to be a natural resistance in our hearts because everything's countercultural. Forgiveness isn't natural. Admitting when we're wrong, that's not natural. Acknowledging our faults isn't natural. Self-control isn't natural. Putting up boundaries to manage our sex drive isn't natural. Maintaining hope in a world that feels like it's fallen apart isn't natural. Holding on to our convictions because of our faith isn't natural. Being quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry, God knows that's not natural. But the more I grow in my awareness of who God is, the more I realize I can trust God. The more my confidence in God grows. The more I'm willing to step out and do what I know he's asking me to do. And I'm just going to tell you, every time that I choose to be obedient to whatever I believe God's wanting me to do, as I'm growing in his character and I'm becoming more and more like Jesus, at first it feels like I'm being constrained, like God's trying to put shackles on me. But eventually I realize God is not restraining me, he is freeing me. He's freeing me from bitterness. He's freeing me from self-centeredness. He's freeing me from pride. He's freeing me from addiction and regret and fear. And so happy people focus their minds and their hearts on God. And the reason these people are happy is because their life is rooted and grounded in something that is stable. It's rooted and grounded in something so much bigger than the stock market that fluctuates every day. It's rooted in something so much bigger than what they said about me on social media. It's rooted in something that's so much bigger than who the next president of the United States is. And so here's what the author of Psalm 1 says about the person who's rooted and grounded in the character and nature of God. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. So every summer for the past 10 years, I spend a week or two in the state of Washington. It's always at this time. In fact, the last 10 years, I think, on my birthday, I've been in the state of Washington. Guess what? That didn't happen this year. COVID-19, right? But that's fine. And so here's the deal. When I'm in the state of Washington, I usually take a couple of days to travel from Seattle, which is where I spend most of my time, to the Tri-Cities area, which is on the opposite end of the state. I've got some friends that live there. And so I travel from Western Washington to Eastern Washington. And the closer I get to the Tri-Cities, the more boring it becomes. It becomes a desert. I look around and everything's dead. It's dry. It's brown. It's just like, oh, come on, get some life to this. But the road that I take, or the highway that I take, runs along the Yakima River. And when you look down by the river, there are trees, and those trees have life. And it's a stark contrast from everything else around it. And so the author of Psalm chapter 1 says that the person who takes responsibility for their life, the person who limits the voices and the influences that they have going into their life, the person who takes initiative in focusing their hearts and their minds on God, these people become immovable. They get diagnosed with something, but their faith is still strong. They go through a difficult season in their marriage, and they don't lose hope. They're mocked because of their personal convictions, but they don't give in. Their presidential candidate loses, and they don't act like the whole world's going to fall apart. But the author says that's not true with everybody. Here's what he says. He said, not so with the wicked. Not so with those who live life for themselves. Not so with those who are irresponsible. Not so with those who live life disconnected. Not so with those who pretend their decisions today have no impact on their life tomorrow. They are like the chaff that the wind blows away. Chaff is this loose outer covering on wheat and other grains, and it has almost no weight to it. When the wind comes, it just scatters. And so here's the deal. We have lots of freedoms in this country. We have lots of liberties and lots of rights, and we ought to be so grateful for that. But we're number 19 in comparison to other countries when it comes to happiness. And that's because if you really want to be happy, you have to do something most people will never do. Take responsibility for your life. Now, we know the value of responsibility because we want everybody else to take responsibility for their life. This week, Facebook watched $60 billion of its market value wiped out because more than 400 advertisers have stopped advertising. They said, Facebook, we want you to be more responsible in stopping the spread of misinformation and hate speech on your platform. That's great. Facebook, be responsible. But I can't control what Facebook does. I can just control what I do. So let me end with this. If you've made reckless decisions in your life, if you look at your current scenario and say, Dave, I'm like the chaff, man. I'm just being blown in every direction. Quite honestly, I don't have my act together. I don't feel strong ever spiritually. I feel like I am falling apart. Today's a new day. And you can still be like a tree planted by streams of water. You can make a decision starting today that you're going to limit the influences and you're going to limit the voices in your life, and you are going to focus your mind and your heart on God. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to change overnight. You're not going to become a different person tomorrow. But at some point, you're going to wake up and you're going to say, I'm strong. The world's falling apart around me, but I'm strong. I believe in the goodness of God. I believe in the greatness of God. I believe in the faithfulness of God. I believe that his mercies are new every morning. So who do you want to be? Do you want to be the tree planted by rivers of water, or do you want to be like the chaff that the wind blows away? Let's stand, and I want to end our time by praying together. Our Heavenly Father, I pray that you would help us to make the right decision with what we just heard. Lord, I pray that you would help us to be individuals who choose carefully the influences and the voices we allow into our minds and into our hearts, and help us to become individuals who pursue you and go after you and focus on you so that we can become a tree planted by streams of water. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.